Hello, you guys, and welcome to the Mat Time Podcast. I'm Nick Pomplin, joined by my co-host Brock Chittum. We are here to preview one of the most anticipated trilogy bouts in UFC history. We have the trilogy bout of Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, and we have a stacked card to go with it. Let's get right into it. So going into this third fight with Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, it's so interesting how a couple months can really change the narrative and just how people are talking about a certain situation. Because before the second fight between these two, if you remember, Conor was the odds-on favorite coming back. He had been out a little while, but he came off some good wins, and people thought maybe like, Dustin's good, he's improved, but Conor might just have his number because he beat him
maybe
the first.
He's just like a next level opponent.
Yeah, and you know how some guys go when it comes to, you could be as good as anybody, but you have a certain kryptonite. Like you think
There's
about
always that one guy that can beat you.
Yeah, the example that comes to my mind is like Benson Henderson was a phenomenal champion in both WEC and UFC, but Anthony Pettis just had his number.
Exactly.
I personally thought that, guilty as charged, that I thought Conor McGregor was just Dustin Poirier's kryptonite. I saw that Dustin Poirier had improved immensely since the first fight. Like he's probably 3 times the fighter he was.
Oh, easily.
Because first off, moving to lightweight, best career move he ever made. But the thing that impressed me the most with the result of the second fight was he truly did prove me wrong as far as not letting Conor psych him out, because that's what happened in the first fight.
100%, man. Conor had everybody's number back then with mind games and shit. Nobody was really quite doing it like that, especially in those weight classes.
Mm.
There wasn't really shit talking and stuff. And he was a young guy. Conor was a young guy. Dustin was just fucking hot-headed.
Yeah,
that's all
and
it is.
Conor got in his head bad. Like that was
yeah.
probably one of the worst. I would say it rivals the Jose Aldo mind games, but you could tell that
it's definitely a close second. Yeah.
And anything that Dustin had to offer in that first fight just simply didn't show up
because he just anger. Like he wanted to kill him so bad he just couldn't pull the trigger on anything.
Yeah, and you can see sometimes who really imposes their game over the other person. Like if Dustin had any ideas of what to do in that first fight, he just felt right into Conor's game.
It went right out the window.
Striking on the outside, letting Conor pot shot him, stuff like that. But obviously we saw in the second fight just immense improvement. Not even just improvement, just a complete overhaul of Dustin's game from the first one. The great
extremely well composed,
great double leg that really did like set back Conor's confidence as far as the striking.
Sharp boxing, very sharp boxing, intelligent boxing as well.
And he had many more punches to offer than Conor did. Conor's left hand is probably one of the best in the sport, but that's pretty much all he has.
Right.
And it's fine. He's won 2 world titles with it. He's beaten some of the best names in MMA with it. But
right, you feel like at least hands wise, maybe he's just got those five punches that are like his, whereas Dustin might offer 10. Just different looks.
We go into this fight, and like many other main events that have passed us recently, I'm like kind of stumped of what to think, because like I said, in the second fight, I thought Conor would just run through him, not because he had any kind of stylistic or skill advantage, just more like the mental thing. But going into this, after seeing the second fight, I do think we'll see a better fight than the second one, because I thought Conor was caught so off guard by the leg kicks and the takedown, but more so the leg kicks. But I mean, we look at it. How do you think this third fight goes?
Honestly, man, when it came to the second fight, I don't recall my exact statements, like for prediction-wise and shit. But when it came to fight night, man, I just had a feeling that Dustin was going to go out there and just fucking... I even thought he might have dominated more than he did. I really just had this feeling that, like, man, tonight's his night, I don't know what it was. Nobody I was with, the whole party I was with, not a single person thought this guy, they're all like, who's this guy? They're a bunch of casuals. So it was like, oh, McGregor's going to kill everybody. Who's this bum? And I was like, I'm telling you guys, man, this isn't who you think it is. This guy's fucking world class. And he goes out there and knocks him damn near dead. Who's done that,
He's the first person to knock out Conor, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's considered a TKO on paper, but if you watch that fight back, man, that last punch he hit him with fucking slept him.
Yeah.
He was out, maybe for like 10 seconds, but I mean, he was out.
So, yeah, and like I think the biggest thing with that is I just really admire how Dustin has evolved where he's a big time fighter now, and what I mean by that is he can handle the big moment.
And he didn't overcommit to trying to finish the fight. If you noticed, he was very precise, and he thought out once he hurt Conor, every single strike after that was thought out. Every combo he threw was thought out. And the way he caught him and finished him against the cage, Conor kept ducking to the right like twice, and then he'd go left. And he finally caught him coming left and hit him with the right hook. It was either a right uppercut or I think it was a right hook, and dropped him damn near dead, man. It's just his timing's better. He figured out Conor's timing. You could tell every time he'd hit him, he'd give him the point and shit. I was eating it up, man. I loved it. But, you know, that was front foot heavy boxer Conor. Not a lot of movement. Legs very stationary, heavy on the front leg, focusing on hands. I don't know if we get that again. We might get the first Conor he fought. More agile, quicker on the feet, wider stance, things like that, which you kind of saw him start to go back to, but not fully. I feel like he really got screwed by those calf kicks being so heavy on his front leg with like a boxing type style. If we get Conor throwing wild kicks, wild punches, that might be his best bet. Especially, not to say he wasn't motivated for the rematch, but now it's like this is the only guy that's fucking knocked you out. If he comes back and trains hard, it could go the other way, but my gut tells me Dustin finishes him again.
Right. I can respect that. And I think that's why I think this is one of the most anticipated trilogies in the sport's history. Not even just because Conor McGregor's involved, but there's just so many things going into it. It has such a big fight feel. And this is one of the few trilogies you've seen that doesn't have a UFC championship attached to it. Yeah. And it's still pulling that kind of interest, not even just from the casual standpoint, but the hardcore standpoint. Exactly what you're saying of like, what kind of approach is Conor going to take? And is he going to be able to handle the leg kicks? Because this is one of the only times that Conor had to deal with leg kicks because
pretty much never in his career did he fight a guy who leg kicks.
Because Jose Aldo was the guy.
Him.
Because he starts him in 13 seconds, and that was the only thing that people were scared of if you're a fan of Conor was like him getting kicked in the leg. Now he faces somebody who not only leg kick, he calf kicks.
And he's very not only heavy-handed, but he drops mean-ass kicks, man.
Yeah, and you talk
he's
about...
just powerful.
You talk about, like, all-time great MMA performances. One that comes to mind, ironically, is Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez. Like, as far as, like, perfect performances. Honestly, Dustin Poirier's fight against Conor, the second one, that might actually be up there in, like, the top 5 because what you were saying of knowing the right shots to pick and how to approach every moment and knowing when to swarm, because that was perfect from start to finish as far as that was concerned.
Yeah.
The way he swarmed at just the perfect time, because you've seen so many times either it be somebody tries to swarm and they get caught, or they swarm and they gas themselves out
and then get beat on.
That's another thing with Dustin Poirier that amazes me, is that it seems like he could throw any amount of offense in a fight and he just never
still sprawl on somebody and keep the fight
sprawls
going.
And he doesn't lose his power.
No.
When we had met him, I mentioned that to him and he seemed to admire that. I realized that was in the fight against Max Holloway. The entire time, he threw nothing but power shots. It wasn't like set, power. It was power, like hooks, straight. Like everything was just...
Everything sounded like he was hitting a fucking heavy bag or mitts, man. Everything landed, and it was just
And the thing that amazed me was like he was showing tired with his like behavior.
Physically fatigued, but like mentally game as fuck.
And there's something to be admired about that, man, because we've been there where you hit that wall where you think it's physical, but it's actually
mental toughness, man. You're telling yourself, I'm done, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. Every athlete's been through that, but that's another fucking level, man. When you're going against a guy in Max Holloway who's known for being the volume striker and pushing a pace on people, for you to go in there and do that and hit him with everything you've got, that's fucking admirable, man.
So, obviously, that fight in of itself is probably worth $60, but we've been blessed with a phenomenal co-main event we have Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Thompson. And this is obviously one of the marquee matchups of the welterweight division. I'm glad to see Stephen Thompson back in the title picture, because if he wins this, I think he's undeniable.
Has to get the title shot, yeah.
But we also have a guy in Gilbert Burns who, he was giving Kamaru Usman a good run for his money.
Almost
early on.
fucking flatlined him in that first round, right?
Yeah.
Overhand right.
I remember talking on the previous podcast as far as like admiring how Kamaru Usman's evolved. So I don't want to make this seem like it's a slight against him, because it's not. But to give the challenger his credit, because he did look really good in that fight. And I do think it is possible, not likely, but possible, he could dethrone Kamaru Usman given a rematch. So
Burns.
Yes, Gilbert Burns,
right.
yeah. And obviously when it comes to Stephen Thompson, it's a matchup that Kamaru Usman hasn't seen. He didn't meet Stephen Thompson on his way up to the
He's
title.
never had a guy be a better striker than him.
Yeah.
Even when in his Burns fight and his Masvidal fight, he has hit another level with his striking. Like he's top tier now. Really, I feel like he's evolved and he's about it. He's next level. He is the elite champion, right, at welterweight. Like he looked untouchable, especially in the Masvidal fight.
Yeah.
But even before that, he was, you would have to say, probably better than Colby on the feet, better than Tyron on the feet, better than everybody before him. Gilbert Burns isn't known to be a striker necessarily, but he looked good against a guy who is now starting to be known for his striking, or known to have good striking. Then he drops Masvidal dead, but I don't think he would be able to do that to Wonder Boy, because he would never get close enough.
Yeah, and that's my thing, because obviously this is in parentheses if Stephen Thompson gets past Gilbert Burns, but we think about that matchup, and obviously it interests a lot of people. I don't think he'd be able to impose his clinch game on him very much.
Never.
Like if he does get a hold of him, sure, he'll probably control position for a while, but who's really controlled Stephen Thompson like that? Especially now later in his career when he's worked with guys like Weidman and stuff like that.
Yeah, like regularly.
Yeah.
You can still argue, like, well, Tyron took him down and was able to hold him down for a round or two in their fights. But honestly, man, like, I'm a huge Gilbert fan. I want to see that guy succeed, but I think Wonder Boy wins that fight.
It's a shame. It's one of the many fights where, like, I'm not a huge fan of Gilbert Burns. Like, like personally, I definitely like watching him fight, and I definitely enjoyed his performance against Kamaru Usman. But it's just a shame as far as a contender standpoint that one of these guys has to lose.
Yeah, it sucks, because I'm honestly a pretty big fan of both guys.
Yeah, so if you're picking with your mind as well as your heart, saying Wonder Boy,
yeah.
I would go with him as well.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna be able to beat a long karate style striker. Now, it bit him in the ass with Pettis. He got caught. It was weird because it really wasn't necessarily a big power shot. It was off the cage and stuff, I guess. But again, that's where that, like, hands down, front hand down type style fucks you. But man, I don't see Burns being able to touch him on the chin with anything serious. And if he gets to Usman, I don't know if Usman's going to be able to get in, because all Usman's game seems to be pretty tight striking.
Yeah.
Fairly tight striking, drop to a takedown or a clinch.
I would think, like, this is like a really, really tough matchup for Gilbert Burns, because, like, everything he does well, it might not even matter in this fight,
Yeah.
Because
he's got decent takedowns too, man. But like we said, Wonder Boy had okay takedown defense. Now he's been working with Weidman a lot more. Now he might just be that much better. If he can hold that takedown off for 2 rounds, it's going to discourage another try. It will.
My ultimate prediction is I do think Wonder Boy's going to win, but it might be a little bit boring, because that happens sometimes.
Especially, like, that kind of style clash too can be really fucking boring, because neither guy wants to do the other guy's thing. So it's like sometimes we might get in there and Gilbert might be game as fuck, and they might just start throwing bombs at each other. Who knows, right? But more than likely, Gilbert comes in tight, clinches. He might try to strike the first round. I'm gonna say that he'll probably try to strike. Second, third round, he's probably gonna drop to a takedown. He's gonna have to get in tight, clinch, takedown, because I just don't see Wonder Boy letting him get close enough to, like, really do damage. And I think Wonder Boy can do more damage at a longer range than he can.
And a small thought I have in the back of my mind is when it comes to, very few fighters seem to truly evolve after losing a title fight, but we've seen it a couple times, and I'd be very eager to see if Gilbert Burns, because it has been almost a year, I believe, since he fought Kamaru Usman. It was, during early mid-pandemic Fight Island days. So what has he truly done to get back to where he needs to be to challenge for the title? If we go into this fight and he's truly evolved in, like, what, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but what if he goes in there and just starches Stephen Thompson on the feet?
Right.
That'd be amazing.
Do you give him a rematch?
I think you'd have the hype to, because I know Dana White is pushing Colby Covington, and I'm not opposed to that. But
I'm not either, but I just feel like we don't want Usman waiting. Colby might have to fight a 4th, 5th ranked guy.
It does make welterweight very interesting, because
there's so many options and routes you can go that none of them are necessarily fair.
Even today, I had seen something, because Maki Kawa's brother, Abraham Kawa, is Jorge Masvidal's manager.
Yeah.
And they said they want to come back, I think, sometime before the end of the year and either fight
Colby
or like maybe Leon Edwards or something. I forget
something
who it
like
was.
that. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be opposed to if we do Colby versus Jorge and then have the winner of Durinho and Thompson fight for the belt.
I'm a fan of that. I really am.
And that's what makes great divisions, man, is that any possibility makes a good fight,
Yeah, and ultimately, I think Poirier was quoted saying this too, referencing like the title fight and things and why he went the route he did. And he's like, well, look, man, we're prize fighters, and to me, the prize is money, not a belt wrapped around my waist, which I understand. Ultimately, money's going to feed your family, not a belt. Just because you have a belt doesn't mean you're going to draw. Like, hate to say, but look at the flyweight division. DJ was the champ, dominating people for years. It never pulled views, man. There were never great pay-per-view buys. Just because you're champ doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's almost better sometimes to just make good fights. Just make good fights.
Sure, and I appreciated when Masvidal was doing that last year, and I think some fans really need to let go of the traditional, like, if you're not fighting for the belt, you're not doing it right mindset.
Yeah,
because think about it.
That's not necessarily the money route every time.
Yeah, and the thing is, Jorge Masvidal, before he fought for the belt, fought Nate Diaz in a fight that everybody was talking about. I'm sure you know people that barely watch fighting, and they were asking you about that fight.
Mainly because of Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
But also Masvidal.
And think about the money they made.
Stupid money.
They probably got more attention,
and they felt like they had to add a fake ass belt into it too. Like, baddest motherfucker. They just had to add a belt.
Yeah, and that was one of the few times. I mean, that was cheesy.
It was super corny. Yeah.
I won't take that from you, but I would say it was a hit as far as
it. Amongst the general population, that might be like one of the greatest things they've ever done.
Yeah, because it was catchy. BMF. Who's the BMF? Even like Dan Murgliata was a ref, and he's like, "We're here to find out who the baddest mother effer is." And but to that point of Masvidal, at the end of the day, still got a title shot. He got 2 title shots at the actual belt after pursuing the money. That's why I respect what Dustin Poirier is doing.
Because it's gonna happen that way.
He could have been fighting Charles Oliveira for the belt now,
and then fought Conor later.
Yeah,
and what's the point?
But
get your money.
Think about it, especially if he knocks Conor out.
Because if he would have lost the title fight, if Oliveira would have beaten him, then you're not fighting Conor.
Yeah,
Boom. There goes millions of dollars. Yeah. There goes millions of dollars right out of your pocket. You take this route. Now you're fighting the guy 2 times, making big money.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid you win again this weekend, right? Now you're really up there. Now everybody's really going to know who you are. You're going to get even more famous because his stock's only been rising for the last 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
Really ever since the second Alvarez fight.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the Khabib loss, I feel like he only got more popular. Losing to Khabib the way
Certainly,
he did and
I think that was like a perfect story arc for him, because the whole thing with the Eddie Alvarez fights with getting kneed illegally and people were getting behind it, because I personally thought he was winning that fight. I know it was very short before that happened.
Yeah.
But people were getting behind him, and especially Alvarez was like, man, like he could have kept going and shit, saying dumb stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
that's what you do.
You make like the classic like pro wrestling thing where you have the face and the heel, and then he wins that fight, and it makes that matchup seem like a rivalry, even though it really wasn't, because it was just two guys fighting again after a screw up in the first fight.
I don't think there was really like bad blood necessarily. Like there wouldn't be issues.
But the thing was, it almost like manufactured a storyline that helped Dustin so much. Yeah. And then when he got to the Conor fight, it's just like the momentum kept rolling, the train kept rolling.
Well, before that, when he fought Dan Hooker, what a fucking fight that was.
Yeah.
How can you not be a fan of both of those
Right.
men after that fight?
It's so respectable about Dustin Poirier because, like, yeah, his personality has flourished over the past few years. He's not just like some angry meathead anymore. You see, he's actually a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
And he has a sense of humor. He engages with fans, but ultimately, what has made him popular is his fighting.
Yeah.
He's just an exciting.
Well, he
fighter.
expresses himself when he fights. He's
Yeah.
not big on like social media and interviews and shit like that. He doesn't like doing that shit.
And my thing, I would rather somebody be real, and if they're boring as a personality, I mean, if they have a boring personality, I'd rather them just be real than trying to fake something. Because what I always try to tell people is, Colby, like, you kind of have a cringe thing, but it doesn't really work too well.
It worked really well when it first started, but maybe the last year he's just looked like a fucking cornball.
Yeah, especially when you're not winning. You can't carry it.
Yep.
And what I always try to tell people is Conor that's who he is. Maybe he hasn't always been loud because he hasn't. When he was first coming into UFC, he obviously couldn't talk like that, and people wouldn't listen because they didn't know who he was. But when he talks, for the most part,
Marcus Brimage.
Yeah.
And then it's like now he's talking his shit, 60 G's, baby, or whatever.
Yeah,
You know?
and you could tell it's like genuine. Maybe he has to turn it up a tad for it to work.
But he's at heart a shit talker.
It
like
doesn't
a very
seem
competitive
unnatural
guy.
because there have been times when you bring up Colby Covington, there have been times where he gets put on the spot
and it's fucking terrible.
He just shits the bed. Like when he had to go one-on-one with Michael Bisping after a fight, and he wasn't ready for that, and he starts fumbling over his words, and just like sentences weren't making sense, and that kind of thing. That right there, that's a specific moment. It's probably happened a couple times for Colby. That kills your persona and ultimately
drops it dead in the water.
Yeah, and ultimately like your sales and stuff like that. You know,
if I'm not mistaken, didn't Conor tweet first person to shoot a takedown's a dusty bitch?
Yeah.
What are you doing, bro? Like that just makes you kind of look like a pussy. Honestly.
It does. Because
and then all those memes came from it, like when Dustin mixes his martial arts and shit like that.
Even when you're a fan of Conor, which I still am, but the thing is, I'm a fan of the sport first.
100%.
And when I see a guy bitching about a guy shooting a double leg, I'm like, what are you gaining from this?
Well, not only that, but it's like, if that's what you want to do, go box or kickbox.
Sure. And the thing is, does he actually think he's going to gain something from that? Does he think that he's actually going to psych Dustin out?
Yeah, he's like, well, all right. Like,
I was going to shoot a double, but now, since
I was gonna win the fight with grappling, but fuck it.
I don't want to be a dusty bitch now, so I guess I can't do that. Like, there's so much more on the line rather than this dumb pride and ego thing. That's where I'm kind of worried for Conor, where if he spent more time trying to psych Dustin out of not doing that rather than fixing how to defend it.
Yeah. Like, I don't even know, like, he used to bring Dylan Dennis in and shit to be his, like, grappling coach and this, that, and the other, and, like, his main partner. I don't think they do that anymore, and I don't know who he's training with. Just because I don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening, but normally, like, the dude posts everything he does. If he's not working, like, any sort of grappling, not to say he was in terrible danger in that second fight with grappling necessarily. He got taken down twice. Was it twice? Once? He got double-legged, for sure. But if you don't see improvements there, it's like, well, fuck, what have you been doing? Are you just doing the same shit?
I think he is, and some guys get caught up in like the conservative mindset where they think if they cave and try to change things after they lose, and they're not loyal and stuff like that. Like, I love him to death, but Chael Sonnen is like that, where he criticizes guys for like trying to change their camp or anything when they lose a fight. I understand. You don't just like go all willy-nilly. Like, if you're with Greg Jackson and you lose a fight, doesn't mean it's Greg Jackson's fault. But
no, sometimes you get fucking knocked out. Sometimes you get submitted. It happens.
At the same time, I mean this in the most sincere ways, because I think John Danaher, what's Conor's coach name?
John Kavanagh.
John Kavanagh. Great guy. Not saying he wouldn't make a good MMA coach for some people.
It's the chemistry.
With Conor, that's the only thing that drives it.
Coach.
You have certain coaches that make fighters, and you have certain fighters that make coaches.
Yep.
Because who else does Kavanagh have?
You had who? Patio Houlihan.
Patty Houlihan. He had Gunnar Nelson, who was
Gunnar
good
Nelson.
at one point in time, but he got figured out.
Yep.
Artem
got figured out.
You hit a very low glass ceiling with him,
Yep,
and there's only so far he can take you. And what drives Conor, and Joe Lozon said this a couple years ago, and I will carry this with me forever, is Conor's left hand is what wins him fights, and everything else that he does, from his mannerisms in the fight to every shit-talking thing he does out of the fights, is to disguise the left hand.
Yeah.
Hook kicks,
honestly,
spinning back kicks, like leg kicks did work for him in the DS fight, but his number one weapon by far is his left cross.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if he didn't have the ungodly, unique power that he had, he would not be where he is. And I'm a fan of him. I'm not trying to shit on him, but that's what it is. So if you consider that a lot of what makes him great is like God-given, something he was born with, there's always so much credit that John Kavanaugh can take.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
And I guess that would go into my prediction, because like I'm a Conor fan, and I'm maybe a little too loyal as far as that's concerned. If I'm a smart man, you probably have to bet Dustin.
Yeah, because he's not afraid to change, man. He's done it every fight. Every single fight, he comes with a different look.
And Conor
or he tries to mature.
And Conor doesn't.
Right. If you notice, like Dustin, he's matured even from the Dan Hooker fight. Or I'm sorry, the Khabib fight to the Dan Hooker fight.
Right.
Different guy. Dan Hooker to McGregor, different guy. I'm sure even McGregor to McGregor coming up this weekend, different guy. More mature. Picking even better strikes. But he's loose though. He's not like anxious and tense, which I'm not to say Conor was, but he was just flowing so well. And Conor's timing got figured out, which is really weird for me to watch, because nobody's ever done that before. Nobody's figured out his head movement and caught him with a quick right hook. Nothing like that. That doesn't happen. But if Conor comes back head high, karate stance, hands down, throwing all of his fucking crazy kicks, is that going to work? Is that going to phase him? Is that going to change the outcome of the fight?
I guess my last question to wrap up Conor versus Dustin, because we could talk about that for hours, honestly, but my last question to you is, if Conor loses this fight, which it's very, very possible, does he fight in MMA anymore? And I specify MMA because I'll get to a different question after this.
Fuck, who does he fight?
Yeah, that's the point. Like,
who does he fight? You know,
this is so big for both men. We know Dustin's gonna be back if he loses.
He'll fight anybody. Man.
Dustin is right back to the drawing board. He's gonna be right back to contender grind. Money aside, he wants to be a champion.
Does he fight Chandler? If he loses, does he fight Chandler? Conor fights Charles.
I think that's very possible, but I
think they discussed it last time, right?
I think you're getting my point that if Conor loses, he's not going to want to do all that. He's not going to want to get back. Man.
He might.
He's money oriented, which is fine. You can be.
That's more than fine. Yeah, which I think. Wasn't he trying to fight? Jeez, man. Pacquiao. Was that really?
Yeah.
I think that was kind of materializing, but it wasn't. It didn't get too far. But I think he was kind of setting himself to fight Pacquiao. If he loses this fight, does he fight Pacquiao? Is Pacquiao too old now? What do you do with all that shit? You know, if maybe he's just done.
I think the only time we would see Conor after he, hypothetically loses on Saturday is if he takes up a boxing match of some sort.
He's not going to do a kickboxing fight.
No.
I highly doubt that.
I highly doubt he'd get in there with Pacquiao. I don't think that would even draw enough for them to do it.
I don't think it would, because he's not Floyd Mayweather and he doesn't talk shit.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, the best bet would be he fights one of the Paul brothers or something like that.
God, dude, I hate to say it, but yeah.
That's really he all has left, or he's just going to ride off into the sunset because he's smart.
But to keep himself relevant, maybe he does.
Yeah. So we'll get into some more fights that are on the card. Our favorite fighter is fighting on the main card is the return of Greg Hardy. He is fighting Tai Tuivasa, and obviously you know who I want to win the fight. But
yeah, let Tai drop Greg Hardy with an overhand right. I'm doing a shoey.
I will. I'm not gonna. It's not gonna be in a pair of shoes that I like. But now that you said that, I'm actually gonna do that
Dude,
if it happens.
I despise that man so much.
I do, and it pains me to say this, and I hope
he's a decent fighter.
I hope you don't hate me for this one, but if I had to pick with my mind, I think Greg Hardy's gonna win this fight.
Are we talking Greg Hardy with an inhaler, or regular Greg?
Well, we know that Greg Hardy with an inhaler is the greatest fighter that has ever stepped foot in the sport, and obviously he's shown to be beatable. You know, he's gotten beat by some of the top guys in the sport, but I think this matchup it just kind of favors him as much as I like.
He's definitely more of like a real athlete.
Yeah,
if that makes
sense. It's not to say that I would be surprised if Tuivasa wins this fight because trust me, I will not be.
He's got power in his hands. The guy hits hard, and he's a good boxer.
It's a tale as old as time where it's about who makes it their fight. That's what it is. If he makes it a brawl, there's probably like a 90% chance that he wins because he loves it.
He thrives in that shit.
But if we start talking about clinching
and wrestling,
technical strike and wrestling, obviously, then I hate to say it, but he
probably loses.
Greg Hardy probably takes a 3-rounder. I hate it.
Bro, he's just not the same level of athlete.
Yeah. So to branch off, we have Sugar Sean O'Malley. I believe he's fighting on the top of the prelims.
Fighting his little brother.
Yeah, so getting into that,
man.
To
offer some shit show.
Yeah, to offer some backstory with that. So Sean O'Malley was supposed to fight Louis Smolka, who is another one of my favorite bantamweights, and it was a shame that I was looking at the fight, one of them had to lose, but Louis Smolka pulled out with a injury of some sort last week. So
was it a staph infection?
It might have been.
Something
I never
like
saw the specifics, but 2-week notice for somebody to fill in. Respectfully, there are so many different guys from top to bottom of the bantamweight division that wanted to fill in, making their case on Twitter, even guys that had fights booked because they know what comes with fighting Sean O'Malley, and they realize that he's not like champ status, but you'll get some notoriety for if you
because he has a name.
Yeah, he has a name. So the confusing thing is, all these different guys offer to fill in, but they get a guy who has like maybe 11 pro fights.
Making his debut. He's
making
9
his
and
UFC
4.
debut. Yeah,
9 and 4.
Yeah, so 13 fights. He's lost some on the regional circuit. Everything that I see tells me that O'Malley's just going to run over this kid. So my question,
which is a terrible business choice for that guy.
Yeah,
I get why he's doing it because there's always that what if, and then he blows up, becomes like the next bantamweight. He becomes the guy, right?
Yeah,
but
right.
It's just like, dude, you have no UFC experience. Not to say you need that per se, but I mean, you got a guy who's 13-1, 14-1, something like that, against a guy who's 9-4. Never fought in the UFC. It's just a different caliber. Now you got twice as many people watching you. All these factors play into it. And I think the UFC's doing it because they want to feed O'Malley an easy fight. Not an easy fight, but they want to give him an easier fight.
They want to feed his highlight reel. It's like building the package,
what's his name? Ricky
Simone. Yeah.
He said that he can't make 35, but he would try to do a catch weight at 40 or just fight at featherweight at 45. O'Malley agreed to it, and the UFC said no. Why would that be? Because that, to me, genuinely, I would be interested in that fight.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a good fight.
When it comes to hype trains, because we've seen countless hype trains, and I've been fans of them. We talk about Sage Northcutt, and you talk about Paige Van Zandt, and different ones like that.
Are they just trying not to derail him?
Yeah, and I guess my ultimate point is, fans start thinking that a guy like O'Malley is scared to fight guys like Ricky Simone because
it's never
they see the fight not materialize, but it might be behind the scenes, the pulling of the strings that has more to do with
100%.
that. And it's just so funny how fans automatically just start criticizing the fighter no matter what.
Yeah, he's a pussy. He's a pussy. It's all, But that's just, it's not the case, dude. I don't care who it is. If you made it in the UFC and you're a professional fighter, you're not scared to fight any fucking body. Just some dude sitting on his couch trying to tell another grown man that he's scared to fight somebody when they both get paid to punch each other in the fucking head.
It bugs the hell out of me.
It's annoying, man.
It's like, I'm not saying nobody's ever been scared of anybody in MMA, but it's just so rare. Like, you're talking...
Every time you fight, you should probably be a little bit scared.
Yeah,
That's
but
natural.
as far as, like, I'm sure Sean O'Malley would fight for the belt tomorrow if he could.
I would.
Yeah. Most people would.
Yeah.
And a guy like him who's I'm sure it's his dream to be a champ. He'd probably do it for free and that kind of thing. So it's just people dip in that well way too often saying he's scared. Like they don't look at a situation.
I mean, Dana does it.
Yeah.
Dana does it. John Jones is scared. The greatest light heavyweight of all time is scared to fight just another guy.
Yeah. I love the businessman strong arming that he does. And I love that it's gotten exposed.
It doesn't work.
It got exposed. I mean, like, especially when you say the same exact thing for like 10 different
10
fighters.
guys. Yeah.
I saw a picture.
Especially Ngannou.
Yeah.
How you gonna say that about Francis Ngannou, you idiot?
Somebody compiled a list of headlines of every time Dana White said a guy didn't want to fight or that he was scared to fight. It had Ben Askren, it had John Jones, it had Ngannou, it had just countless guys. And you know what the number one driving force of that was that Dana White didn't want to talk about?
Money and timing, like dates of fights.
Yeah.
Francis just won the heavyweight title 3-4 months ago, maybe 4 months ago.
Against the greatest heavyweight of all time.
Against the greatest heavyweight of all time. Fought him twice now. Clearly he's not scared to fight anybody if he already beat the GOAT, the heavyweight GOAT. He's not afraid to fight anybody. You're telling me he's afraid of a guy who's coming up in a weight class. Never fought a heavyweight before, coming up in weight, trying to bulk up, now he's scared? It makes no sense.
Besides Ngannou himself, because Ngannou's the scariest guy at heavyweight
in the
probably
world.
In the entire
I would
UFC.
have nightmares about that man.
But besides that, he's fought all the rest of the scary guys.
He is the scary guy.
Yeah.
They're scared of him.
And like
he's beat all their asses.
Think of all the like other scary guys. You have like, Overeem, Rosenstruck probably.
I mean, fucking DC dodged a bullet, because he got that out of the way early.
He did.
He got Ngannou out of the way early, because we might have seen that motherfucker sent to the moon if he got hit with an uppercut. Honest to God, be honest. DC would have got sent to the moon.
It was a terrible matchup because, we look at Stipe preparing for the potential third fight in the future, and what's he doing? He's bulking up.
Yeah.
DC, I will say it until the day I drop. I understand he was extremely strong, and like
he's a little guy, bro.
He is 5'11", and most of the time he would go into fights soft. Even at 205, he was soft. He never lost weight. He cut it.
Even in the international Olympic level wrestling scene, he was not an in shape guy. Like, he didn't look in shape. He was always kind of like a pudgier, soft guy.
He had the heavyweight strength and he had the heavyweight power because he was lifting guys like Alexander Gustafsson and more so Josh Barnett, who you've seen
him on his
we know how big Josh
forehead,
Barnett is. But even with that, I will say confidently that a DC who actually spends time on diet, that's a big thing. A lot of people don't want to diet. A DC that diets could fight at 185. I will
guarantee it, cuz.
And he probably would have looked great.
He would have been the best 185 pounder.
Donald Cerrone is taller than Daniel Cormier. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
A guy that held the light heavyweight championship and the undisputed heavyweight championship. And you've seen what Donald Cerrone looks like.
And he's fighting guys that are 6'5", 6'4", 6'6",
But yeah, I love that people have always been, I'm not saying anti-Dana, but they've always been privy to his bullshit.
Now they know he's being a fucking, like a little snake, man.
Yeah.
They're catching on. More and more the generalized fan base, like the more like casual people are starting to realize like, oh, this guy's just a dickhead.
As far as like social media transparency, because I remember when I first started watching the UFC, he would it's like people weren't on social media as heavy as they are now. Yeah, Twitter was around.
It wasn't as big as it is now. So, every fucking body has either Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or some form of social media, and it's just so easily accessible now.
So if he goes on a press conference or anywhere else and says something about a fighter, and at seconds notice, if the fighter sees he's going to go, actually, what happened was...
Exactly, with screenshots from his manager going back and forth with whoever the fuck, with whatever matchmaker they got now. There's messages going back and forth. Francis Ngannou's manager, boom, posts all the, I think it was Instagram DMs, right?
Yeah, and...
Posted a whole laundry list of shit and was like, I don't care if you blackball me, here's what happened. And just threw it out there, man. Like, what a set of nuts that guy had.
And I appreciate that he did that because
he could have just shut the fuck up and been scared about, like, his job. And
some guys that were probably on Dana's side probably trying to make it seem like he's trying to make it about himself. And that's what Dana really tried to do, is like, oh, this guy's slimy.
He's selfish.
This, he's selfish. But it was the right thing to do, especially because it was a simple request from Ngannou's side.
Just a date change.
Just a
bro.
date change, which
No
I
money,
understand, because they wanted Derek Lewis to fight on the Houston card because he's from Houston, Texas. I get it.
That's not his problem though. That's not Francis' problem.
And it's ridiculous that they're making a interim heavyweight championship, like you said, 3 months after the biggest win of his life.
Sense.
And you know that there's no disputing him as the best heavyweight right now.
No, it's not even. There's not even a close second, man.
No.
Stipe obviously right behind him, but I don't know if Stipe wins that next fight.
Yeah.
I don't know if he wins that trilogy fight.
It's
who comes
unfortunate.
close? So who do we got? It's Lewis is fighting
Ciryl Gane, who just won the week prior.
Guess what?
Or like a couple days
Guess
prior.
what? Francis beats the shit out of both of them.
Yes.
Honest to God. Here we go back to stronger, faster, better fight IQ, more mature in the cage, and probably better technique when it comes to boxing and even grappling now. He is a better fucking fighter than both men. I don't think it comes even close. When he was fighting Derek Lewis the first time, that's a whole different guy.
Yeah.
That
110%.
Francis is a completely different guy.
If the rematch between the two was actually happening like it was supposed to, obviously they would use that as a marketing ploy, like, oh, Derek Lewis has an unavenged win against him and that kind of thing. But we both know
that was the worst fight in history of fights.
And it was just the worst
Boring.
showing from an individual, more so on Ngannou's side, because you had spoken about it before. He was so gun shy coming off of like getting his spirit broken by Stipe the first time.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
And that's gone now because
he's killing people.
Not only did he not get his soul taken by Stipe, he took Stipe's soul. So it's like he's probably on cloud 9 when they talk about the magic and having the momentum and having the confidence. That was probably one of the worst things that could happen for all the rest of the heavyweight contenders, was for Ngannou to win like he did. Because
there's no real, like we said, there's no real second guy right now. There's no real number one contender.
And it's not to say that Ngannou's unbeatable, because he's not. I still see weaknesses in his game.
For sure.
Like, I still think he could get pushed to the limit as far as cardio. I still think that he can get taken down by some.
But is John Jones that guy, though?
If it's not him, then who is it?
Exactly.
If Stipe bulks up, maybe.
Maybe. But then that makes him slower. He gasses more now. And he's a little bit shorter, right, than Francis. Maybe like a hair.
Yeah, but he has the longer reach because his arms are like disproportionately long.
Right. That's from pulling children out of burning houses.
He's a saint. Yeah.
Yeah. So even if he bulks up, I don't know if that necessarily. It's probably going to help him when it comes to grappling.
Yeah.
But he's going to now be slower. Maybe he hits harder. Maybe that's what Maybe that's the thing. He's going to hit harder and he can grapple better. Because as soon as Francis sprawled on him, that extra like 30 pounds, whatever it was, that's a big deal, man. That's a very big deal, especially when you're already gassed.
Yeah, a big thing with me, and I'm glad some people are realizing this now, especially seeing John Jones put on the weight he is. For so many years, I guess it was like John Jones haters were trying to say he belongs at heavyweight. He belongs at heavyweight. My counterpoint, no. He is the most perfectly built UFC light heavyweight, and probably
that's ever been built.
And I would argue probably one of the most perfectly built athletes for his respective sport ever.
Yeah, perfect.
Because
perfect.
People talk about this, especially grapplers fighting him. They think like, oh, you got a tall, skinny guy. I'm gonna be able to grapple him.
Nah.
Chael Sonnen said the first thing I realized when I clinched with him how strong he was. He is.
That's different because that's like skeletal strength.
Yeah,
the motherfucker. Like, he's a skinny guy, so it's like unassuming strength.
So for so many years, that was the only thing people could take away from him. Like, oh, he's just a heavyweight fighting light heavyweight. He's fighting guys small.
He's not, though, because look at how hard of a time he's having bulking up.
Yeah.
To put on real, like, lean muscle mass.
That he's going to be able to efficiently use during a fight. Because
exactly. You have to not only build a muscle mass, now you have to train yourself to fight at the highest level with an extra 20 to 30 pounds of lean muscle on your body. So you're stressing your body a lot more. You need to provide more oxygen to your body, and you need to be able to fucking move, like we said, an extra 30 pounds.
And obviously he's not getting younger. He's not old, but he's
entering this is going to be a couple year process. This is why we haven't seen him. People don't understand this. People think that, Okay, well, he weighs 230 pounds right now. Yeah, but he's not, like, he's in shape, but he's not in fight shape. If he got lean as fuck and got in the best shape of his life for this fight with Francis, what does he weigh? Maybe 215? Maybe 225? Maybe. He probably wants to walk in there at a lean 230. Lean 225, lean 230. Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah,
You don't want to see him much smaller than that.
right. Because I think if people are smart, if heavyweight contenders are smart and they have the same game plan as Stipe as far as grappling, they'll look at Stipe isn't a small guy. It's just Francis Ngannou is a very large guy.
Motherfucking 265 pounds.
Yeah.
Of just dick.
So if you're not gonna go in there built for the grappling battle, then you're not gonna survive, and it's gonna be a very bad night because it's like getting knocked out by Ngannou, man. It's life changing. It is.
Yeah.
And we've
I'd
seen,
be in a wheelchair.
yeah.
He would break my fucking head.
You know, there's so many people, like, you see all these, like, would you rather get, like, kicked in the leg by this guy 10 times or take one punch from Ngannou?
Not even a thought in my brain, dude.
People don't even realize what that would do to you, especially, like,
That could end your life.
I'm nowhere near, like, a true heavyweight frame at all.
Yeah, like you're not that big. Like,
yeah, and there are
those
guys,
big dudes can take big punches.
and there are
I'm
guys
not a big
my
guy.
size and maybe even smaller sometimes that say, like, oh, I'll just take the one punch from Ngannou. What's the worst that could happen?
Oh, I'll just get knocked out. It's like, nah, man. You don't just get knocked out. Your brain sloshes around and turns into a fucking slushy.
Even some of those heavyweight guys, I would say, like Overeem and this more recently the Stipe one, where you have the big punch that lands, and then you have the, like, just the frame of him standing over with a hammer fist
With a mailbox.
and hit you one more good time before it's over. That's life changing. It is.
That would probably kill me. I'm 170 pounds.
I think it would kill me.
That would kill me. That would kill me. You couldn't pay me enough. Like maybe if you were like, hey, let him fucking punch you in the body 10 times. First off, probably going to break my fucking chest cavity. And then kick you in the leg 5 times. I'll be like, maybe, but I better not have plans for the next 6 months.
So we'll wrap back to, well, obviously we'll be talking about the interim title fight if that's what pans out. I'm sure it's been materialized at this point when that comes for next pay-per-view. But I was looking at some other fights. We have Ryan Hall's fighting somebody. I'm not even sure who he is, to be honest.
What's the name?
Let me see here. I will look it up for you.
Now, I know Ryan's coming off his back problems. That's why he had to... who's he? Dan Ige, right?
Yeah, he was supposed to fight Dan Ige.
He was supposed to fight Dan Ige. He had to back out of that fight. I think it was a spinal injury, like lower back problems. First off, I hope that he is truly, like, at 100% again. I don't want to see him come in there hurt. I don't want to see anybody fight hurt. I mean, fight camps, you get little injuries and shit, but, you know, like...
His opponent's name, he's a Spanish guy named Ilia Topuria, El Matador.
Okay.
He beat Damon Jackson his last time out.
I can't say I'm familiar, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm honestly not either, but I guess the biggest storyline with that is, you know, we talk about Ryan Hall's dealing with injuries, and even before that, he would have, like, year spans in between fights, man.
Nobody wanted to fight him.
Yeah, and it really does suck because it's like he might actually be a threat for this division.
Not only that, but talk about a guy who's not afraid to evolve.
Yeah.
You know what he's been doing, man? So his school's in Virginia, I believe. He goes down to North Carolina and trains with Wonder Boy. So if you see him,
that makes sense because
him,
that side stance he has.
If you see him fucking mollywhopping people, don't be surprised, honestly. And Chase Hooper went down to Virginia to train with Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall said, "Hey man, you're fucking up, kid. You need to go train with Wonder Boy too." And they've just been going down there and getting clinics regularly. They'll go down there for like a month at a time, man.
Yeah.
It's really good, especially a guy like Chase who's so young. Let's be honest, his hands are fucking garbage, but he's getting it. He's starting to get it.
He's lost just so young, man.
Yeah.
He's so young.
Is he still 21, maybe 22?
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that.
And you know that there's going to be a time in probably the next year or two where he's going to
really like turns into a grown-ass man.
And he's going to put on some grown man size because he does not have it right now.
I mean, he is a bird, son.
Yeah.
I love him. I do. I really do. Like, I love the guy. He's a cool guy. But again, you're just he's got to start putting it together a little more. In his last fight, he definitely lost it. He looked okay at certain points, but for the most part, he just got outclassed.
I'm trying to remember because he lost to Alex Caceres, and that was like a big awakening as far as like his striking not being there.
Yeah.
And then he had a fight where he was losing the majority of it, and then hit an
heel hooks.
Imanari roll.
Heel hook, inside heel hook. I mean, he was badly losing it, like getting terribly outstruck. And that's after that fight is when he went to Wonder Boy, I believe.
Right.
But even he was kind of like crushed on Twitter because he was posting things like, "Oh man, it sucks when your idols, Joe Rogan and DC, are telling you how fucking terrible you are over commentary."
Yeah,
it's
and
like, dude, sometimes you need to hear it, bro.
You hope that he looks at it like I very easily could have lost this fight, so you get the learning experience along with a win bonus.
Exactly. He still pulled off. I mean, I think it was in the last minute.
Yeah.
I mean, it was damn near the end of the fight, and he was able to pull that off. But
yeah, we'll wrap it up. So I'm really hoping that Ryan Hall, after this fight, I hope he wins first of all,
and then I need to see this man fight twice a year.
Yeah,
bro.
I hope he gets back on just a roll. I hope he can stay injury free
because he's not necessarily a young guy either.
Yeah, he's not, and he won the Ultimate Fighter. I think when he was in he was 33 or something.
4 years
I'm
ago.
not even sure.
It's been a while,
and he wasn't a young spring chicken then, and
only getting older.
Yeah, so I hope he gets back on the ball. We also have Carlos Condit versus Max Griffin. I think that's a very good fight. I know. Obviously, Carlos Condit's best days are behind him, but
he's still fucking Carlos.
He's fighting
Condit,
very smart, and he has some new tricks up his sleeve. Like I was salivating when he fought Matt Brown and he hit that like Muay Thai trip that I was showing you, and you were saying that's like classic Muay Thai stuff. Yep. I love that he's still fighting, and
I hope he hits this motherfucker. Dude, I love Max Griffin too. It's another one of those like, damn, I don't want either guy to lose, but man, I want to see Carlos Condit drop some elbows on somebody, man.
Yeah, I want to see just like the fight of the night Condit that we used to see, even when he lost like against GSP, Johnny Hendricks. You just knew you had a good one. But one last one was Nico Price. So we're gonna see somebody get knocked out when Nico Price is on his back. So that's gonna be a perfect appetizer.
Who's he fighting?
Let me look it up for you.
Damn, it's a good fight, man. Chikaze, I'm not sure how to pronounce it if I'm being honest.
Oh, he's actually fighting Michel Pereira. He's a Brazilian guy. He's built like a freaking fire hydrant.
He fucking kissed his hand and bitch slapped. God, who'd he do that to? Somebody. One of his last fights, he kissed his palm and then bitch slapped somebody with it.
Yeah, so
what an interesting fight that is, just stylistically. Those are two completely different guys.
This is what makes a really good UFC card because the hardcore fans are going to get like really interested early on. I think a fight like that is
every fight on this card sounds like a barn burner.
Yeah,
truly. And then we're gonna have O'Malley's gonna kill that kid, right? So there's gonna be one murder at least, and then we're probably gonna have 5 or 6 fight of the night contenders.
That might be a good point because we're talking about why did Sean O'Malley get this fight. It might just be like the perfect appetizer before we get on the card. They know he's going to knock this kid out.
But unfortunately, I mean, more than likely. So we're going to get that and then multiple fight of the nights back to back, fight of the night contenders.
I think it's going to be a phenomenal card, but we're going to wrap it up here. I'm Nick Pomplin, joined by Brock Chittum. Make sure to like this video and subscribe and share it with anybody. If we appreciate any kind of publicity we get from any of our friends, anybody watching, we appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, see you on the mats.
All right, guys, thank you for tuning into the Mat Time Podcast. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know how you feel about the topics we discussed. And you can find our social media down in the description. Thank you guys for tuning in.